Hello everyone and welcome to Recreate the Reel, episode number 4. I don't need to scroll very far through my saved Instagram posts today because I saw this post a couple of days ago and I knew I had to try something like it. The Instagram and TikTok account is by Oin, and I'll include a link to the account in the description below. I made a lot of errors trying to recreate this reel, so I'm also going to include 5 tips on what not to do. Because of the negative space here, I decided to put some washi tape down instead of just penciling in lines. Tip number 1, do not do this. It was a really bad idea and a huge waste of time. No matter how narrow the tape is, it's going to be too thick and block out your entire corners. I used a Sakura Gold Shadow Jelly Roll pen in pink. These pens are really neat because, as you can see, when the ink is wet, it's a pink color, and then when it dries, it turns gold. Once it's dry, when you turn it in the light, you'll see both shades. Since I figured out that the washi tape was a bad idea, I outlined the areas for the gold and then I peeled off the tape. Knowing that I still needed lines, I made another mistake. Here comes tip number 2. Don't do this either. I used a white charcoal pencil to draw in the lines. This was really a terrible idea because when you go back over it with the Micron pen, the ink really does not like to stick to the white chalk. When I started to fill in the areas like the original drawing, I was using the white chalk as a guide, and what I really needed was a black line. Once I figured that out and fixed that, I'm ready to actually really get going on this. This pattern is actually fairly simple. What you're doing is retracing the lines, but being lazy about going around the corners and kind of rounding them off. Now that I've finished with that bottom area, I'm going to fill in every other square with this kind of petal pattern. I wasn't really happy with how I started it, and it does not look at all like the original drawing, which I had really liked. Since I was really not happy with how this was turning out, here comes tip number 3. Don't give up. By this point, I had wanted to quit and start over several times. because things were not turning out like I had anticipated or wanted. Part of that is because when I do these videos, I do not practice them beforehand. I want to see if I can sit down and draw and recreate something similar on a first attempt and how long it will take me to do it. If your drawing is not turning out like you wanted or anticipated or expected, don't give up. Keep trying, keep working at it, and see how it turns out. You may be surprised in the end. Here is tip number 4. Don't rush. You will probably hear me say this in every drawing video I do. Take your time. I get anxious and I want to see how it will turn out, or I don't have much time and I want to finish because I may not ever get back to this drawing. There were several times during this drawing I wanted to quit and start over, but I promised myself that in these Recreate the Real videos, I would go start to finish, all mistakes, no do-overs. When I remember that and I just take one line at a time, I can enjoy the process even though I know it isn't going how I might have wanted. I knew I wanted to fill in these last diamonds, but I wasn't sure what to do, so I just started drawing arches until the pattern was filled in. At this point, I honestly did not like the drawing. I wanted to toss it and start over. Because those washi tape spaces around the gold are so wide, I decided to fill them in a little bit and make them narrower to match the rest of the drawing. I'm using a graphite pencil to add some shading underneath each of the wavy lines, so it begins to get a layered look. I smoothed out the graphite pencil with a Tortillion. Some white jelly roll across the top of the lines just gives it that little pop, and it makes the dark look darker. I then added some lines around some of the corners and some of the edges just to give them a little bit more dimension. Normally I would probably do more shading, but I was frustrated and I was not in the mood to put more time into this piece. Tip number 5 is don't expect perfection. You will always find something you don't like or isn't how you wanted it. When I looked at the drawing the next day, it looked better than I remembered. Looking at the whole picture, you don't see the mistakes. As always, I hope you find your inspiration, and thank you so much for watching. I've included links to buy Oin and affiliate links for the products I used in the description below.